Greetings to you all. Today's teaching is titled Genesis chapter 6, 20 verses 25 to 27, Revisited Part 2. Before we continue from where we left off, I'd just like to emphasize the one of the teachings on this particular verse, which is basically that we should not expose one another. We should not expose one's nakedness, and the teaching is true that we should not expose one another's nakedness, but with love we should cover each other and comfort and conceal and smooth over. There is no point in exposing one another and weaken your brother and expose him to ridicule or shame. But rather, if we should do anything, we should approach them privately. Of course, that's if you have the standing. Sometimes you don't have the standing. I mean, for example, it's very difficult for a child to console his father or grandfather, so to speak. So it all depends on circumstances. But the whole message is really we should not expose we should cover one another's shame. Otherwise, we would equally be upset as Noah was at learning that Canaan was exposing him and exposing his nakedness to all and sundry. Anyway, we continue now. I'd like to draw some, see if we can learn something from a story in the Bible, in 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 13 to 25. And see if we can throw some light on Genesis 9, 25 to 27. So now here we have Adonijah, the son of Haggith, who went to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and he approached her and said, then he said, this is Adonijah. He's saying now to Bathsheba, you know that the kingdom was mine, because I think he was older than Solomon, but we know God's will was that Solomon was to reign after the father. So it's not a question of age, it's a question of what God's choice is. So obviously when he tried to take it by force or by stealth or by deceitful and fraudulent means, he was actually rebelling against God the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When you go against his will, you are rebelling, you're not being obedient. So this is what now this man here is doing, which is exactly what Noah did as well. He was rebelling against God's will. Anyway, he goes on. He says, you know that the kingdom was mine, and all Israel had set their expectations on me, by contrive. He contrived it, and that I should reign. However, the kingdom has been turned over and has become my brother's, for it was his from the Lord. So he's acknowledging it, but he was trying to get it by other means. Now, I ask one petition of you, do not deny me, he said. And she said to him, say it. Then he said, please speak to King Solomon, for he will not refuse you, that he may give me Abishag the Shumanite as wife. Now, Abishag the Shumanite was actually one of David's, I think, concubines, if not wife. So Bathsheba said, "Oh, very well. I'll speak for you to the. I'll speak for you to the king." So Bathsheba, off she went to King Solomon, and spoke to him, as and and the king, and she said she was now going to represent or speak on behalf of Adonijah. And then the king rose up to meet her and bowed down to her and sat down on his throne, and had a throne set for the king's mother. So she sat at his right hand. Then she said, "I desire one small petition of you. Do not refuse me." The king asked of her, "Ask it, my mother, for I will not refuse you." So she said, "Let Abishag the Shumanite be given to Adonijah, your brother, as wife." And then the King Solomon answered and said to his mother, this is I think the New King James translation. And he said to his mother, "Now, why do you ask Abishag the Shumanite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my older brother, for him and for Abiathar and the priest, and for Joab the son of Zuriah." So you're saying basically, if you're going to ask for him, you might as well ask for all the other people who were in this conspiracy to dethrone him or to make sure that he didn't get the throne. That's the reaction. And yet everybody knew that Solomon, the throne was his, but they tried to get it by other means. And still, Adonijah came back trying to come in through a back door. Yeah, he came back trying to get in through a back door, saying, "Oh, if I can just have the wife," which is basically laying claim to the king's wife is the king's wife, king's concubine. So you are getting closer to what you want to achieve. In the Voice translation, it reads, "Why do you ask Abishag Shumanite to be Adonijah's wife? While you are at it, why don't you ask me to hand the kingdom over to Adonijah? He's the eldest son after all. I might as well hand it over to him." And of course, Abiathar the priest and Joab the Zuriah's son. In the contemporary English translation, it says, "What? Let my older brother marry Abishag? You may as well ask me to let him rule the kingdom. And why don't you ask such favors for Abiathar and Joab?" So basically what he's saying here is what happened in the case of Noah, what he was asking, no, not strongly, but I think when he mentioned the God of Shem, I think he was just throwing that in. That was not his intention. He was praying to his God. He wanted the kingdom. He wants the world. In this case, Abijah wants the kingdom. He tried to get it one way, it failed, then he came back and tried another way, and it still failed. And of course, as a result of that, he lost his life, because obviously he's showing that he has not relented, he has not repented. He still wants it by whatever means. So now the parallels I want to draw with this is that Noah, effectively, as aggrieved as he was, he disinherited Canaan, and I suppose maybe Ham. I'm not sure. Although, of course, the curse was directed at Canaan, and we know how the Canaanites turned out to be. They tended to be a very wicked people. That yes, and God was not pleased with them, and in fact, they were so wicked. He wanted them to be literally exterminated, because they would have corrupted his people, and they did in many ways. And he proceeded And then he proceeded to dispossess Shem of his territory. And yet at the same time, we know very well that the land was vast. There was enough space. All the countries had been given their boundaries, but he was not content with that. Noah was not content for that for Japheth. He wanted it all. First of all, that Cain and Ham should have nothing. They should become slaves. And Japheth should have the whole world and live in Shem's tents. So, why would you want to live in Shem's tents as if the world, the earth, was not big enough for all three of them and their descendants? It could only be that he wished the Messiah, I mentioned that earlier, would come through his bloodline. He wanted Yeshua, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, to come through his bloodline. That is why he's lying in wait in the Holy Land, because he believes that the Messiah has yet to come. He adopted the Jewish religion nominally, and because he wants greatness for himself. Don't forget, he's a man full of pride. That family, that bloodline, they want everything. So he wants the Messiah to come through his bloodline, and that is why the Bible talks about that Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles has been fulfilled. So, and yet he knows that. Yet I don't know whether he knows it or not, but we know that Yeshael came over the Anointed One. The Anointed One came to earth over 2,000 years ago and did his business. He was born, he was crucified, died, descended to the dead, and was resurrected and ascended to heaven. And right now, he's seated at the right hand of his Father, making intercessions for us. Revelations 1:17 now tells us how he's going to come back. He's not going to come back for salvation, because that has been done. We have salvation. He's going to come back in this way. 1:17 reads, "Behold, he's coming with clouds, and every eye will see him, even they who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn because of him. Even so, amen." So all the world is going to see Christ when he comes in the clouds. The Hebrew, the Jews who rejected him, and caused him to be crucified, to be crucified, and of course the Gentiles for their part in crucifying him, because they had their final word. And in Matthew 24:30 reads, on the same point it reads, and on 26:64 reads, Jesus said to them, "As it is as you said, nevertheless I say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Matthew 24:30 reads, Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So when he returns in this way, he is not coming as the Messiah, he's coming as judge. Salvation we have in hand, all we have to do is appropriate it. We just have to appropriate it. For those who may not, if you think about deeply, there's a problem here of, well, I think people generally may think that, this identity theft is a new thing. It's as old as they come. No, Noah was doing that. The idea of switching destinies, or stealing other people's destinies and living someone else's life as if it were your own. And it's happening right now as we speak on the people who claim to be who they are not, who are in Israel right now. And there's an imposter, Adonijah, who tried to do it through another way, to be king when he was not supposed to be king. So it is a very old practice, and I hope few have been fooled by this imposter, the notorious impersonator. But we know that not everybody has been fooled, and we know what's going to happen, that he's going to, as we pointed out in part 1, that he's going to reap a whirlwind, even a storm. The day of the Lord is near, and it comes quickly. And because, we're just recapping here, we know that in Deuteronomy 32:7-8, we talked about how God had given, he had divided the descendants of Adam into nations when he established the boundaries of the peoples as the number of the gods, the sons of God. But his personal portion was Yashael, was Jacob. Now, talking about identity theft, I think here's one scripture which I think captures it, at least in my thinking. And it's Ecclesiastes 10:7. It reads, "I've seen servants on horses while princes walk on the ground like servants." That's the New King James translation. The Voice translation reads, "I've seen slaves riding on horseback like royalty, and princes walking on the ground like slaves." Now, coming back to what the issue is actually in Genesis 9 is this. It was basically trying to preempt or forestall the Messiah coming, and of course to steal the destiny of the Hebrew people. We come back now to Ezekiel 20:23 says, "Also I raised my hand in an oath to those in the wilderness that I would scatter them among the Gentiles and disperse them throughout the countries." Ezekiel 12:15 reads, "Then they shall know that I am the Lord when I scatter them among the nations and disperse them throughout the countries." And I remember in another teaching, I mentioned the fact that actually Israel is actually God's servant, and he sent him out for his glory, so that people, when they see them and they will know about him, they will talk about him and preach about him, they will see him in his people. They would see God in his people. In Psalm 18:49, it reads, "Therefore I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the Gentiles, and sing praises to your name." That's Yashel speaking, the Hebrew people. In Psalm 106:47, it reads, "Save us, O Lord, and gather us from among the Gentiles to give thanks to your holy name, to triumph in your praise." Ezekiel 11:16 reads, Therefore says, thus says the Lord, although I have cast them far off among the Gentiles, and although I have scattered them among the countries, yet I shall be a little sanctuary for them in the countries where they have gone. So he's not abandoning his people. He's still going to fulfill his promise to his people. They are above the nation, above all other nations. They are his people. In Jeremiah 30, verse 11, it reads, "For I am with you, says the Lord, to save you, though I make a full end of all nations where I have scattered you." In other words, they are going to be punished and for what they have done to you. Yet I will not make a complete end of you, but I will correct you in justice and will not let you go altogether unpunished, because he's a just God. In Isaiah 43, 5-6, it says, "Now, fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your descendants from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth." So he's going to regather and gather his children back home. Jeremiah 31:10 reads, "Hear the word of the Lord, all nations, and declare it to the isles afar off." Yeah, these are your Americas, your UK, the isles in the Far East, Australia, New Zealand, and all other, Taiwan, etc. But basically, I think he's talking about those ones that are dominated by the Japheth. Then he says in 31:10, he reads, "Hear the word of the Lord, all nations, and I declare to the isles afar off, and say, he who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock." Now, we come to a very interesting passage, which I think is very, very interesting, which is Deuteronomy 32:21. It says, this is the Voice translation. It reads, "They have made me jealous," talking about the Hebrews, how they've made God jealous because they've worshipped what isn't God, and they've angered me with their idols. So I will make them jealous by favoring those who aren't a people. I'll infuriate them with a godless nation. This is the Jubilee translation. It reads, "And they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I also will move them to jealousy with those who are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation." And the number translation, it talks about jealousy by giving my affections to a foolish Gentile nation. To foolish Gentile nations. This one is talks about plural. The others are talking about a singular nation. Then the other one reads, "And I'll send a cruel and worthless nation to make you jealous and angry." And then it goes on. Another one translation reads, "Make them jealous with a nation of godless fools to make them angry." So what he's going to do is he's going to make the Hebrews jealous where they are among the Gentiles. Now, if we take the view that we are only talking about one nation, which appears to be favored, because that's what one of the translations says here. He's going to be, because he's going to give his affections, he's going to let them prosper and flourish. That nation can only be the Holy Land right now. That the people who are there, even though they are not, the people from there are going to prosper and flourish as if they were the indigenous owners of that country. So now I think I've gone full circle, showing God's will and how an attempt was made to subvert it, and how he's going to turn around, and his original plan is going to come. It's going to come to fruition. It's going to be fulfilled. His original plan, that the people will find the Hebrews will end up back in their own country, and their blessing, and the Messiah, the blessing will not be stolen from them, and Messiah did come through them after all. So that part of the intention on the part of Japheth did not come to pass, although the other things of becoming or dominating the world has come to pass. So in summary, now we are trying to tie up everything now and come to some kind of conclusion. We know that the order of their birth was Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah cursed Ham's son Canaan. And the evidence is that Ham is the one who looked upon his father's nakedness, but Canaan was the one who was cursed, I suppose, maybe because he's the one Noah overheard or heard talk about it publicly to other parties. So Japheth was the last born, yet Noah preferred him above above his other sons. He was clearly establishing a hierarchy, as we mentioned earlier, and and he went so far as to be in direct contradiction to God's choice, in that he prayed to his God for Japheth to be enlarged and to take over the land and territory of Shem, and on the other side he totally disqualified Ham or Canaan, and saying that he should be a slave to both of them. So now when you go against God's will, are you actually, and it appears to be a blessing, is it actually a blessing or is it a curse? That's the question. Because we know what the Bible says. It says, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. So when you go against God's will, are you attracting a curse or are you attracting a blessing? Even though he was not praying to Ahaya at that time. He was praying to his other gods, the one that we mentioned earlier, the ones who sit in the council. And he prayed, or can we look at the curse on Ham, on Canaan, as just a patriarch who's upset, who's his words and his wishes have the ability to determine the destiny of the tribal and of individuals in that tribe, or maybe even other outsiders, because of his standing with God. But we know that he was praying against the will of God, and he wanted more and more land. He wanted Japheth to take more and more land from Shem and make it his own. So in this sense, Shem now dwells in the tents of Japheth. For the Jews, the noblest representatives of Shem, dwell dispersed in Aryan countries there in Europe, in the Americas, and in other countries, but they don't have their own. They don't have a land of their own. And Japheth has taken over the territory of God's chosen one, which is Israel. And so to this extent, we can say that the prophecy has been fulfilled. Now we know that now Japheth is riding on the horse, and Israel is walking barefoot. So we know that as we mentioned in part 1, that Noah was not praying to the god of Shem, but to his God, and we proved that because they'd been all assigned a god to preside over them, and God's lot was actually Israel. And it says here, for the people of Israel, Yashael belonged to the Lord. Jacob is his special possession. And then this resistance to God's will, I think, is captured very well in Psalm 82 verses 1 to 8. But we'll just read. It reads basically saying, how long will you defend evil people and judge unfairly? How long will you show greater kindness to the wicked? Defend the weak and the orphans. Defend the rights of the poor and suffering. Save, rescue the weak and the helpless. Protect them from the power of the wicked. And then it refers to these gods in the council assembly as as bullies and ignorant and have no understanding of my ways. So as they walk in darkness, the foundations of the earth tremble. And then he says, yes, I said you are God, you are the sons of the Most High, but you shall die like any other person and will fall like all the leaders, the princes on earth. And then so basically, when we are fighting, the fight that was going on here is captured in Ephesians 6:12. We mentioned that earlier, and it reads that for our fight is not against people on earth, but against the rulers and authorities and the powers of the world's darkness, against the spiritual powers of evil in the heavenly world, heavenly realm, who are here called gods. So that's where the fight is. It's in the heavenly realms. These gods who are disobeying God and promoting their own wicked ways and outcomes are the ones who worked and acted on behalf or responded to Noah's prayer. So I also mentioned that the time of the Gentiles is not yet over. It can only be over when the system, as we speak, Babylon, which I mentioned earlier, has been overthrown. That's when, because this is the time of the Gentiles. This is the time of the Gentiles, and Israel is being trodden under, is being trampled underfoot by the Gentiles. And when will the regathering take place of God's people who are scattered all over the world? I've identified three. We can look at it as one because we are talking about an end time period, but we can break them into segments. Like the first ones who are going to be gathered together is that group of people who have been promised that they would not face the great tribulation, and they will be with the woman, which is Israel, where they will be hidden somewhere, and will escape the great tribulation. And then there are those who are going to go through the tribulation. Some are going to be martyred, Some are going to come out, some are going to escape somehow. They'll be miraculously, they'll be saved, but they will go through that period of the Great Tribulation, which is 3.5 years. And then at the end of it, when I suggested that it will come to an end when the two witnesses are murdered by the Antichrist. So that's two. The third one, I think there will be some people who will continue beyond the Great Tribulation. No. And then there's also that group of people who are going to be, which is also captured, which are also part of the people who have not been martyred, but in this general tribulation, those ones will be raptured up to him in the clouds. But it will be around the time at the end of the tribulation. And then there are those who I think will have escaped and survived the great day of the great day of the Lord, who will make it into the 1,000-year reign. And then, of course, there is going to be infuriating them as we speak. Says, I'll make you jealous by those by those people who worship idols. Yes. Okay, the Hebrews have angered him because they worship idols, and he's going to make them jealous by favoring those who aren't even a people. And I indicated who that nation is. A non-state is none either, I think, than Israel, and is being trampled under by the Ashkenazi and other people who claim to be of Hebrew or Abraham, have Abraham's heritage, and whilst the true Hebrews are out looking on from among the Gentile nations. They also claim to be hated by everybody, but and that they are greatly persecuted, not necessarily so. Neither they hated by everybody, because it would appear that they were placed. It was one brother who placed placed one brother there, and they support him financially, politically, and diplomatically. So I don't see that there are any particular problems there. And we also notice right now, in April 2022, that we also have other two brothers who have decided to play war games, and everybody is looking on. So now we come down to the very important question. Noah's prayer was for Japheth to take over, to achieve world domination at the expense of Shem, and of course Canaan and Ham. That's so they're all removed from the equation, and he alone is the one who is in charge of everything. And it is true. And we actually mentioned it that he he's taken over the territory and he's expanded throughout the world and taken other territories everywhere, and also that he's not only that, he's sitting in the promised land, and he's taken off. He's taken off Shem's territory, and this prayer prophecy has been largely fulfilled and continues to be so until the heathens' time has come to an end, and that will be after the Lord's day, the day of the wrath of God. So we captured this earlier that Japheth is expansive power, refers to the vast territory he occupies, and also the they talk about multitudes of Japheth. We talk about his intellectual and active faculties. These are the components to his success. The metaphysics of the Hindus were also of his tribe. The philosophy of the Greeks, the military prowess of the Romans, modern science and civilization of the world are due to the race of Japheth. Political and moral influence penetrating all the moral darkness of even Ham, as well as the remainder of Shem and Japheth himself. He's an economic powerhouse, concentrating most of the world's wealth in his hands, a high level of industrialization, and industrialization levels second to none, technologically advanced. The Anglo-Saxons being in the ascendancy from Europe to all the world, English being the world's lingua franca. Japheth is clearly the successor of Babylon, which is by its nature Antichrist, has an Antichrist mindset and epitomizes the decadence that goes with it. It's polytheistic. It's got a polytheistic thrust orientation. And we also know that he's also got a religious arm, which is the church that he tried to hijack, and has more or less hijacked and is using it as a political instrument. And this church, this body, is trying to bring under its umbrella even religions like Islam and Judaism under its control, and other denominations as well. So he's trying to bring in all the other denominations and other religions under his umbrella to have like one world religion, which is nondescript. But effectively, such a religious thing is by very okay, not only is it multi-denominational, but it's polytheistic in its orientation, that it accommodates everything except the one true religion. So we have this this religious church arm which he goes around with. He's gone around with all over the world wherever he went, and it's infused it with corrupt and false doctrines. It's got false prophets, and he's also privatized the Messiah. He's got pictures of him, and he's very Caucasian, insinuating that he's that they have the same type, same color, and therefore his domination of the world is sanctioned and endorsed by him, by God. So White is right. And therefore his ascendancy to world domination is no accident. It's divine will. Now, the question is, what was Japheth to give this God, his God, the other gods, in exchange for what he's given him for the glory and domination of the world? Well, first of all, we know that, yes, he was given the world, he's dominating it. So I think what he gave in return must be something along these lines. That Japheth, in return for world domination, was to dedicate his descendants to serve the gods' purposes and agendas on earth. And this is captured in Psalm 2:1-3, which reads, Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. So this is a great rebellion that is in progress. So anti-Babylon, as we said, is antichrist, and this mission statement it was handed to Japheth and his descendants, so that they, amongst other things, they do a number of things. They only develop and promote worldly philosophies, create institutions and doctrines and teachings that are devoid of the knowledge of God, or deny God, the existence of God. In fact, they strive not to even mention his name or his existence at all. They want to remove the teachings of God from the children, remove from the schools, from the curriculum, remove Christ from the center of it all, from our lives, from everyone's life. No one must mention his name. And in fact, his name must be expunged from the minds of all peoples. He must exist no more in our daily lives. He must be absent, and he must be contradicted in our ideologies, that's a system of ideas and ideals and values, doctrines, teachings, and especially those institutions that have been labeled as secular, and must be divorced from any religious content or interference. And then, in addition to it, this is something that we pick up in Exodus. It goes that we make sure people work 9 to 5. They must work hard, make them tired and keep them tired, and make their lives such a drudgery, chasing the pound and dollar, so that they have no time to pray, because you are just too busy trying to survive. You must always be worrying about where the next dollar is coming from to balance their meager existence. And those who are well off and are doing well, we keep them busy. They are to be kept busy buying every new thing and gadget and clothes and every material thing, so that they actually have no time to think of God nor pray. We are to estrange the people from the knowledge of God and promote humanism and of course, promote science as our God, and make sure that God's existence remains a secret. But much more than that is they want to make sure that we also, that no one mentions Satan. Everything is due to lack, and lack is disease, and it's things that just happen. It's nothing. Satan is not behind anything. Things just happen to people. We give new labels to things that are normally, in the term of that in the church are attributed to demonic activity. We will give it some medical term, title. But also, above all, the existence of Satan must remain a secret, except to the ruling elite. They should know. It's not something that everybody knows about. But those who are in power, right at the top, that's why they are there. But they're not supposed to expose and tell them who they are worshiping. It's supposed to be a secret. They ostensibly do things for right reasons, although that would be doubtful, and that their decisions are always well thought out and have the people at heart. But here's one point, I think, which is at the center at this time, which is most relevant, was that the Japheth was supposed to create multilateral institutions such as the League of Nations, the United Nations, World Health Organization, and the like, because they are crucial and critical for this time. for the establishment of a new one world order, one economic order, one currency, one religion, and through these multilateral institutions, the one leader, the one world order, the one leader who will take over, that will be the arm, the instrument with which he will use to control the world. Whilst, and on the one hand, he's experiencing his world domination, but at the same time, he's dominating the world for someone else who's really dominating him. I don't know whether he may see it that way, but that's what's happening. So in order to do this very well, like I mentioned earlier, it's important that the mission statement of these organizations of the world and nation by nation and globally remove the knowledge of God from the earth. And through these institutions, the one world order will be put into effect, into operation. And more fundamentally, it is through Japheth that the dragon will make his not so spectacular appearance on earth, or rather will reveal himself and openly demand worship. Revelation 13, 4 and 15 reads, "So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast, who's able to make war with him?'" Remember, the two witnesses who had great power were killed by the Antichrist. The 15 reads, "He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed." And God's response to that is in Revelation 14, 9 to 10. "Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, 'If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." The other gods that Japheth was praying to, where he prayed for to be given power or to be enabled to dominate the world, this is done through the ruling elite in Japheth's descendants. Not every Japhite is involved in this or has such aspirations, but normally it would be the ruling class who feel that who have this desire to want to dominate the world and control the world. And I think that's the prayer that was made in Genesis 9:25 to 27. Now, in order to separate Japheth and differentiate him from the rest of mankind, I believe that these gods did some tinkering, some genetic engineering, which changed the appearance of Japheth so that he was different from everybody else. And by looking different, this led him to believe that his appearance and what other virtues and abilities that he may perceive, his perceived excellence and abilities, his great strides in technology, education, and other such fields, lay perhaps in his different appearance or his unique appearance. And perhaps he he reasoned that his ascendancy is by reason of his appearance, and and that's what and also that also entitled him to dominate the world. Now, the genetic engineering, I don't believe necessarily fundamentally altered anyone. It perhaps maybe just changed the looks, but nothing more. It didn't affect God's general architecture of the human being, the body and soul. It didn't stop God working in his people, regardless of, even though they may look different from everybody else. But I think yes, people respond to God regardless of and irrespective of physical appearance. It's the heart, and I don't think it affected that. It's just that I think for those who have this desire to dominate the world, they fall for it more easily, and they perhaps even their orientation. And if a ruling elite becomes a class, it's self-perpetuating. They grow up with this doctrine and this thinking that they're entitled to this and that. And when they do that, they just leave themselves open for Satan to do his work. So I don't think the change of physical appearances fundamentally changed anything. It just changed their looks and nothing more, nothing less. And if one decides to place all his confidence in his looks and what he's achieved, well, it seems to be working for him. But everything that he's doing is in rebellion to God. He's being rebellious. He's rebelling against God. On this point, there's let's read Daniel 2:43, and it reads, as you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. So based on this on this scripture, it did nothing absolutely fundamental. There's been no fundamental change in the human being. So in conclusion, Japheth, having been given Babylon, because that's what he asked for, world domination, and that's the vehicle to it, which is Antichrist, he's gone along with it, and he traded with the serpent in return. In return, he's to heed the serpent's beck and call. He's to drive, to spearhead the serpent's agenda, purposes, and mission on earth, and throughout the ages, right up to the end of the millennium age. And all this, what he's supposed to do for the serpent, he did this in return for world domination. And on this point, we will have our introspection and meditation, which comes out of Revelation 9:10 from the Expanded Translation, and it reads, so I went to the angel and told him to give me the small scroll. And he said to me, take the scroll and eat it, symbolizing the internalizing of the word. It will be sour, bitter in your stomach, but it is a message of judgment, because it's a message of judgment. But in your mouth, it will be sweet as honey, because it is God's word and because it brings salvation and vindication to his people. Our benediction comes out of Numbers 6, verses 22 to 27. Again from the Expanded Translation, and it reads, the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you shall bless the Yeshalites. Tell the children of Yashael, say to them, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord guard you. May the Lord show you his kindness. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and have mercy on you. May the Lord be gracious to you. May the Lord watch over you, and may he lift his face, presence, countenance upon you, and give you peace. So Aaron and his sons will bless the Yeshalites with my name, put my name upon the children of Yashael, and I will bless them. And in this way, they are to put my name on the people of Yashael, so that I will bless them. Thank you, and may God bless you all.